NBC's Olympic coverage gone too far to get personal stories from the athletes? That's the question raised today by media analysts at the New York Times and other publications after one reporter brought American skier Bode Miller to tears, questioning him about his personal feelings during the games. This after Miller lost his brother just last year. Joining us now to talk about it, Rich Lowry, editor of the National Review. Alan Colmes is also with us, host of the Alan Colmes Show. Both are Fox News contributor. His brother, Chili, nicknamed Chili Miller, also had hoped to be at these games in snowboarding. He died, I guess, in early 2013, some kind of a seizure after he'd had a motorcycle accident. He had been prone to them, died natural causes. But obviously, the reporter was pressing Bode Miller about it, and a lot of people don't like what happened.
Yeah, I understand asking him about it because he's been very open about what this loss meant to him, but this felt like badgering to me. This felt like trying to break him down so you could get the shot of him crying. It felt like exploitation. I had a very visceral reaction against it, and a lot of other people did as well.
Alan?
Very thin line. Obviously, if you know you're going to be questioned and you know it's going to come up, and a reporter often wants to probe and get the emotional reaction, so I can see both sides of it. It's a very fine line, though, and I understand the need for reporters to be sensitive, too. And if it rubs viewers the wrong way, it's probably not a good thing.
One of the things that brought a lot of criticism is the fact that they could have edited it out. I mean, this was not live. This was, taped 8 or 10 or 12 hours earlier, Sochi time, and they chose to put it in anyway.
Yeah, and that's another indication they wanted this. They wanted him on his knees. They wanted him crying so that he could get the shot and play up the emotional narrative. And they always want the backstories of these athletes, which is understandable. It humanizes them, makes it more interesting. But this just went too far.
We just put up a flash of a tweet that I received this morning when I asked viewers what they think about all this. Let's go back to that. Nell Hunt writes, "She sensed his emotions and kept at it until he cracked. Kind of sad, really." And then Cynthia Tanner wrote, "It is her job to report what is our business. Bode's grief over his brother's death is not our business." And then a couple of responses from Facebook. Rosie writes, "This was a display of the worst journalism I've ever seen. It was downright shameful." And Stacy Taylor writes, "I started yelling, 'Leave him alone' at the TV. Stupid questions, very unprofessional. Turned it off after that." And finally, one last one. Victoria Murray says, "Sometimes people should learn to shut up."
Gee, I've never been told that, but I know do you ever think that, are there anybody who tweeted who agreed that this was the appropriate thing to do? It's interesting because most people seem to have the same reaction. It's uncomfortable. But I think you're right, Rich, in that the network, they didn't edit it out. They wanted the emotion because they think that's what gets viewers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the questions were asked in a respectful enough way. I mean, obviously you lose your brother, a guy who wanted to be on the podium as a snowboarder. Yeah, it was a respectful question, but clearly
she reaches out and comforts him a little bit. And he said afterwards that he didn't bear any grudges over it. But the normal human reaction when someone is clearly upset about something you're doing or asking, you stop. And you could have had plenty of emotion just there. You didn't have to break him down the way she did.
It reminds me of the episodes of Hannity and Colmes where you guys would...
Why did I have a feeling that was going to come up? We never stopped. We kept going.
I always tried to make Alan cry when I was a guest host, and I never succeeded.
You didn't try hard enough.
Well, they are drawing their share of coverage. You had an interesting thought, though, about your overall... take on the coverage.
The thing I found most galling about the coverage so far is the opening ceremonies, the whitewashing of communism, which NBC refers to as this pivotal experiment and this 20th century dream. And it's this hideous ideology that murdered millions of people, and no one would ever talk that way about Nazism.
What do you expect they're going to do, though? They're in the host country. They're probably going to say something positive, which is going to upset many conservatives now praising Putin
something
like he's better than Obama.
About communism? I mean, what is there to say?
I wonder
murdered and repressed tens of millions of people.
Why are so many conservatives praising Putin as a great leader these days?
Well, that's a different issue.
Yeah, it certainly is.
All right. Rich Lowry, Alan Colmes, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.